What is up, YouTube? And today we have an updated selective summon tier list for you guys today. And mostly I'm making this because we have a lot of newer players coming to the game, especially after the Overlord collab, and also because Epic 7 World Championship is being advertised more. A lot more newer players I've been seeing in the comment section for my channel. So I'm just gonna talk about the 5-star units you can get from the selective summon, and actually what units you want to be going for. Now, if you guys didn't know how the selective summon works, basically it's a reroll at the start of the game. The game will prompt you, and you can basically choose whichever unit you want because you can reroll it an unlimited amount of times, and you can save it, right? So basically, there's going to be 4 tiers, actually 3 tiers, with the best tier, 3 units, the OK tier, also going to be 3 units, and the bad tier, these units are just going to be not really worth it. Ideally, you do want one of these 3 best units here. Let me actually turn on the name so you guys can see. And that is because these units you'll be using pretty much for the entirety of the game. And they're going to be strong in a lot of areas of content. So let's actually start with the best tiers. So personally, I think actually this is the correct list now. And mostly because we have Ravi at the top here because she is super good after the rework. She is good against Immortal Wukong, who's a newly released unit, which is like pretty much everywhere you can use her against him, but mostly because she's good in PvE and PvP content. She's a jack of all trades. You can put her in the front line slot as your tank to soak damage. She doesn't really die. She does a ton of damage, and she has built-in lifesteal. She's very easy to build. She doesn't even need any crit chance, which is very hard to get as an early game player. So I think Ravi is going to be probably the best unit now because she's just so good in PvE, and in PvP she is serviceable even into the late game, and she's very strong because she counters a lot of the meta units. Next we have Asaria. She's mostly going to be for PvE. Very strong unit here. She is super strong in PvE because you can pair her with another healer known as Tamarin, and she is very good with her, synergizes very well. If you're looking for a pure PvE unit, she is the way to go. PvE is more important in the early game, but Asaria's worth doesn't really get realized till you're in the mid and late game. So because of that, she's not going to be the best unit for you until you do progress a little bit. But in PvE, in the mid to late game, she is the best option. Better than Ravi in PvE, but in PvP, she is utterly useless. So for that reason, I have her at number 2. I think Ravi is just going to be the better option here because even though she's slightly worse in PvE, actually a lot worse, in PvP, she's still very good. So I think she's going to be at the top, and she is pretty decent in PvE overall. Destina here, not really used in PvE content at all. You might use it in the early game as like a slot and healer, but later on she kind of gets, outclassed by other soul weavers, especially like 3-star soul weavers even. So because of that, not that great in PvE, but in PvP content she's decent. Not the best soul weaver anymore, but she's still pretty good. So for that reason, we have her at the bottom of the best tier. Now let's go to the OK tier. So we have Vildred, Charlotte, and Araminta. Vildred is a pretty solid PvE unit. In PvP, he's used somewhat. The reason why I say somewhat is because you need multiple copies of him for his imprint for him to be used in PvP, and even then he is very niche. You're going to use him only in cleave or very fast comps, and as a newer player you're not going to really have good access to high speed gear. So for PvP you can kind of think of him as useless, and in PvE he is good, but there's a lot of good free-to-play options that does what he does, but actually a little bit better. So Charlotte here, honestly, she's just an okay damage dealer for PvP and PvE, but overall nothing too special. She does a lot of AoE damage. She's pretty tanky, but if you want more damage, Village is a better choice. If you want more bulkiness, Ravi's a better choice. So just kind of a meh unit, but not that bad. Araminta, I think she's very underrated. She has a attack buff for your team, which is very nice. She has a ton of AoE damage, and she's pretty solid overall for PvE content. She has a lot of burns. She's pretty easy to build. You don't even need to have max crit chance on her because she does scale more heavily with just attack. But overall, I think there's just better units to choose than her. So because of that, we have her in the OK tier. Okay, next we have the bad tier. These units are pretty self-explanatory, right? Tywin. I'm not going to really talk about them, honestly. They're just not good at all. You don't really use them anywhere, except for maybe a certain few. So for example, you could use like Balances on for late game PvE content for pretty much one area of content only, and even then you don't need him. Charles, you can use him in a hunt or a dungeon, which you farm gear for, but even then you can replace him with a lot of other units, which are just better. And Chloe, very niche in Wyvern, the first dungeon or hunt you're farming, but just way better options than her. So because of that, just all bad units. The only one that I think is maybe somewhat okay is like Ken, because he's always good in the Guild Wars content, or not Guild Wars content, the guild content known as Ancient Inheritance, which is a late game area of content. But besides that, primarily you're going to want to focus on Ravi, Asaria, and Destina. If you're having a tough time choosing, if you want a jack of all trades that is good in PvP and PvE, go for Ravi. If you want a unit that's more better for PvE, Asaria. And if you want a unit that is better for PvP overall out of the three, then Destina. But overall, I think a jack of all trades is the unit you need, especially in the early game and as a newer player, because you don't really have that much gear, so you can just throw her on whatever gear or equipment you have and bring her everywhere, and she'll just do wonders for you. Now we also have Sigrid down here. She used to be the best option, but you get her for free now from a event, not an event, but a feature of the game that is called Hunt Expert Challenge. So she used to be like the best of the best because she's so good for Wyvern Hunt, but because she's free now, there's no point in picking her. Pretty much it for this selective summon tier list though, guys. Nothing too crazy. Just wanted to update the tier list a bit because, like I said, we have a ton of new players, and honestly, I think with the changes to Ravi, just makes her the best option. I think a lot of people say go Destina or Asaria, and I used to say that too, but after the buffs, I think Ravi is just going to be by far the best option because she's the easiest to build. She is going to be able to do a ton of damage for PvE and PvP, and in PvE, a lot of the times you are struggling to stay alive because your frontline unit is dying, and Ravi can actually fit that front line slot pretty easily because she has built-in lifesteal, and she also actually has just a lot of tankiness and a lot of damage and an AoE stun to actually give your team another turn to actually heal up with your Soul Weaver. But yeah, pretty much it with this tier list though, guys. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about it, and also if you guys remember what unit you chose or what unit you did choose, and I'll see you guys next video.